Hello friends, so today's video is going to be part 2 of my March new releases wrap up. So in part 1 I talked about City of Dusk, All the Horses of Iceland, and The Bone Orchard. And then today I will be talking about Gallant, Wild and Wicked Things, and A Magic Steeped in Poison. So I'm going to start with Gallant. This is the one I would say is probably on the most people's radars just because V.E. Schwab has such high name recognition in fantasy, writes middle grade, YA, and adult. This one is young adult, although in some ways I would say kind of leans middle grade. For anybody that's a mood reader and you like reading with the seasons, this is the perfect book for fall. Not trying to keep anybody from picking it up now if they're interested in it, but it just has that very eerie, almost haunted house gothic aesthetic to it. We follow a young girl who is living in an orphanage, and there's just something about her and her past, and specifically her mother, that is all very mysterious. Olivia Pryor is our main character's name. All she really has left of her family is this journal that her mother left behind, and as she reads through the journal, she discovers that her mother, it would seem, sort of descended into madness. At some point, something happened, and she didn't really seem to make much sense anymore, and our main character doesn't really know if her mother is still alive or not, although as a result of her being in an orphanage, she has her suspicions as to what likely happened to her mother. She knows that something happened to her father, but she doesn't really know anything else about the rest of her family. And you don't really know why, but our main character actually doesn't speak throughout the story. She does use sign language to communicate, but her inability to speak, you're not quite sure exactly what has caused that, if it's something physical, if it's something traumatic that she experienced that then has affected her ability to speak. But it was, I thought, fantastic to see a main character using sign language. You don't see that very much. And I also think it can be quite difficult in a story where you're so accustomed to reading dialogue to have a character who doesn't speak still be able to express themselves and still be able to feel connected to them. I think that she did a fantastic job with it. I am a big fan of V.E. Schwab, and her writing, I thought, in this particular book was amazing. If you are somebody who doesn't love her use of repetition and the way that she sort of is a little melodramatic at times, then I don't know that you're going to love her writing in this. I thought it 100% fit the feeling of this story because once Olivia is sort of leaving the orphanage and then going to Gallant, which would be this very strange, dark family home where there's so much behind the scenes that she's trying to uncover. Once the story starts to move in this setting, I think you can see why the writing style is so fitting for that. I did think the book felt in some ways scary, but I was never scared reading it, and I think that's because our main character, she just finds herself constantly intrigued by things that are happening, and even when she's alarmed, I would say she never seems absolutely terrified. Has a lot of strength. There's a lot of quiet fortitude with this character that I really, really liked. It's not the kind of story that I came away from thinking, oh my gosh, I loved this character, or oh my gosh, the relationships between these characters is amazing. It wasn't really that kind of a story. It is a standalone, and I think it's just perfect for a weekend Halloween read or something like that. Not an all-time favorite. I do think this is some of my favorite writing I've seen from V.E. Schwab. He always has the most creative, interesting ideas, and while, like I said, it wasn't an absolute favorite even of her works, I did still quite enjoy this one. Wild and Wicked Things, I would say, also did a great job with the atmosphere and the setting. This one, you may have seen it compared to The Great Gatsby, or maybe even in the marketing, it's come across like some kind of Great Gatsby retelling, but with witches. And after finishing it, I would say that this book has nods to The Great Gatsby, but if it's meant to be a retelling, it is a very loose retelling. So something like The Chosen and the Beautiful, which came out last year, I actually felt that book was almost too close to the original story. There were, of course, aspects built in, but with this one, it is so much its own thing, with just a couple of characters who have parallels to the characters in The Great Gatsby. Our main character in this is Annie, and she is sort of the Nick character if you want to know the parallels between it and The Great Gatsby. She moves to this place called Crow Island, and this is taking place not too long after World War I. Annie definitely has a lot of family and friends that were affected by the war. She has moved to Crow Island, though, as a result of her father passing away and leaving some things to her. But Crow Island is shrouded in darkness, mystery, magic, and she's finding herself, despite being this good girl who follows all the rules, being caught up in all of this. A longtime friend from her childhood also lives on Crow Island. This is sort of the Daisy character, and she decides she's going to try and reunite with this friend, and maybe she can build some connections, and maybe she can build a life here. So she doesn't really know what path she's going to take, but she figures maybe she can take it alongside Beatrice. This is her friend. And there's something going on. Right away, when you meet Beatrice and her now husband, you can tell there's something strange here. And then on top of that, the Gatsby character would be Emmeline. You do get Emmeline's perspective as well as Annie's. These are the two perspectives throughout the story. And Emmeline, she throws these extravagant parties, but she's got something going on, and this is where the magic and the witchcraft in the story starts to be discovered. And Annie, despite being this good girl who's always doing things as she should, finds herself really wanting to know more of what's going on with Emmeline, and also it would seem Emmeline has something going on with Beatrice and Beatrice's husband, Arthur. And so you're trying to figure out what happened with them, and the story has almost multiple timelines throughout. So you have Emmeline and her sort of found family that she lives with. These are her siblings to some degree, not by blood, but people that she grew up with. You have these three living in this fancy house, and clearly there's some kind of magic going on. You have their backstory as one timeline. You also have what occurred between Emmeline and Beatrice as a timeline, and you have present day. And then you also get snippets from various other perspectives throughout the story. It sort of breaks apart the different parts of the book as it is broken up in parts. And it was very interesting. I thought the way that the author, like I keep saying, gave nods to Great Gatsby while doing something I thought was very original. I did like a lot of the twists and turns in the story, and I really liked the darkness of these women because they are very gray. I mean, some of the reveals, you're like, oh, you're kind of a horrible person. And I get why you did it, but also you're pretty selfish. So you start to see stuff where you're like, oh, you're pretty bad. Now, my biggest personal criticism of the book and why I didn't 100% end up loving it is while it's not particularly long, it's I think around 400 pages, a little over, I did feel that the book was a little repetitive at times, and in one specific way especially. So because Annie is this good girl, she will constantly find herself thinking, I should just go back home. I should turn my back on this island. I should just leave. And then she will then have the next paragraph be like, but yet I find myself so intrigued by what's happening and I don't want to leave. Or she'll be talking to a character and the character will say like, do you want me to go? And then in the thoughts of the character, because it's first person, she'll be like, you should go, but I want you to stay. It's always this back and forth all the time. Oh, my doggy's having a puppy dream. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear her. But anyway, it's a lot of back and forth. A lot of back and forth. And I say all the time, I love sitting with characters in their feelings, their thoughts and their feelings. It's one of my favorite things about books. But a little bit too much. I never thought I would say that, but I was like, I don't care about your thoughts and feelings right now because I already know them. Your thoughts and feelings are, I'm conflicted. The cover art needed to be an illustration of like a woman picking a flower petal like, should I not? Should I not? Because that was a lot of the book. And it's really present in Annie's perspective, but it happened in Emmeline's as well. At one point, I just flipped to a random page to try to find an example, and I immediately found an example when I was talking to my husband about it. And it's not the end of the world. It's not like, if this book sounds really great to you, I don't want to deter you from picking it up just because of what I was just mentioning, because I do think that the setting is amazing. And I do think the grayness of the characters, if you're somebody who really likes those sort of darker characters, you're gonna like this. This is similar to Gallant, a great one for the fall. There's so many reasons why I still want to encourage people to pick this one up, but maybe just go into it knowing that you're gonna get a lot of should I not. Last for the March new releases, we have A Magic Steeped in Poison. I really had a good time with this book. It was exactly what I was hoping it would be. So where some of the other new releases were not quite what I was expecting, and then I had to sort of readjust, this one I went into it and I'm like, yay. It's like when you're craving something and you're like, I want pasta. And then you get pasta and it's exactly what you were craving and you're like, oh yes, this is exactly what I wanted. That's what I felt like with this book. That doesn't tell you anything about the book. It just tells you that I enjoyed it. But this story follows a character who at the very beginning, it's actually very tragic. She is mourning the loss of her mother, as well as kind of wondering if her sister is going to make it because her sister has fallen ill. And there was something to do with poison, and it's not just affecting her family, but it's starting to affect a lot of different people throughout the realm. And our character just is devastated at everything that is happening. Her father is grieving, as you would expect. And there is this opportunity that the character has to enter into a competition with the magical art of tea making, which I thought was so interesting for a premise. And so you have this character deciding that she's going to enter this competition in hopes that she can figure out what caused the poison and then also gain the favor of royalty and use that favor, because that is the award for this competition, use that favor to hopefully then save her sister. And you see the character thinking about her mother throughout the story, thinking about her sister. It's one of those books where even though the main character is separated from their family, you can very much feel their love for their family, that loyalty, that connection, and that tie to their family. And I really liked that about this character. I also found that the competition aspect and the way that the tea magic was crafted into the story was really cool. I think nowadays we see so many hard magic systems, or maybe magic systems that really lean into is a system, and it can sometimes start to feel less magical. And I genuinely felt like the magic in this felt magical. The competition stays throughout the book, but there's also a lot more beyond just the competition. As our character is trying to navigate things, she is starting to uncover that there's so much more going on with the inner workings of nobility. There's a lot more to do with class, the way that certain people feel about their history, about different groups within their realm, and our character is starting to see that beneath all of this grandeur, beneath all of this beauty, perhaps this particular life that she thought maybe she could find herself living within might not be the life that she wants, nor she doesn't even know if she is going to be accepted within this life, because her family, they have their own history, and she's discovering more about her own family as she's in this place while she's competing. There's just a lot of treachery afoot, and sometimes I couldn't tell when friendships would seem to be coming about, or when there would be a character that would seem like there's a romantic connection with. I would wonder, are they good? Are they good? Can we trust them? Do I like this friendship, or do I feel like maybe perhaps this character is actually going to betray our main character? I can't tell. And I liked not quite knowing. I definitely am excited for the sequel, and if this sounds good to you, the sequel is scheduled to also be released this year, which is really exciting. So we're going to get the conclusion to this duology within the year. That's it for the March new releases. Like I said, I will have part 1 in the description bar down below, as well as any purchase links in case you're interested in checking these out. But anyway, if you've read these, let me know your thoughts on them. If you're going to check them out, let me know. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.